Dickie Wells is a name that many people don't know, but we know the names of a lot of people who have been connected to him romantically and some even criminally. Joan Crawford and Tallulah Bankhead are just a couple out of many women. He was, by most accounts, a gigolo for whom famous actresses would travel all the way from the West Coast to Harlem just for the chance to get in his bed. These tales from his exploits are interesting to hear, but nothing tangible for us to grasp. However, one lasting contribution of his that may be even more familiar than the stories of his string of lovers that many people can and still do enjoy is his creation called Chicken and Waffles. Jet magazine had a lot to say about him in 3 separate issues in the 1950s, and I'll share all of that with you in this video. This is the story of a Cotton Club tap dancer turned professional gigolo turned restaurateur who lived the fast life and in the end paid the ultimate price. Let's get into it. Richard Dickie Wells, known as Mr. Harlem, was an extremely gifted tap dancer, nightclub owner, and notorious gigolo and playboy. His career began in 1920. He was a self-taught tap dancer when he began dancing in the Wells, Mordecai, and Taylor trio. They started out on street corners, dancing for nickels and pennies. Not long after, the trio began performing in upscale clubs like Small's Paradise and the Cotton Club. When most black men who were earning money at all were earning $25 to $35 a week, Dickie Wells was making $500 per week performing at the Cotton Club. That has the buying power of over $6,900 per week in today's 2021 money. And it was at the Cotton Club where reportedly Dickie discovered that his female admirers were interested in more than just his dancing, if you catch my drift. For that reason, the end of the 1920s looked very different from the beginning of that decade for Dickie. He started off in the 20s, earning most of his fortune by tap dancing. By the end of the decade, a lot of very rich women wanted Dickie's time and were willing to pay for it, and he was just as willing to take their money. The talk of what he was capable of doing in the bedroom was very well known from Harlem all the way to Los Angeles. Women, most of them rich and white, from all across the country were pouring into Harlem to meet their not-so-Latin lover, who was often mistaken for being Cuban due to his having lighter skin and wavier hair than most black men have. His roster of alleged lovers included, but certainly was not limited to, Joan Crawford, Ava Gardner, Tallulah Bankhead, Lana Turner, and a not-so-well-known singer named Jean Parks who cannot be left out of his story. These women, and many others, showered Dickie Wells with expensive presents, first-class trips, and money. Most of them seem to have had the understanding that Dickie was out on loan to them. They had to hire him for his time, and their leases were short-term. Lana Turner, on the other hand, seemed to hang on to the delusion that she could have Dickie all to herself. She started to demand so much of his time that he had to think of a way to get rid of her. His solution was to give her a more tempting distraction, and that came in the form of Dickie's good friend, heavyweight boxing champ, Joe Louis. So, if you have ever heard about their love affair and wonder how it started, apparently this is how. Dickie Wells didn't want Lana Turner hounding him for his time, so he passed the blonde bombshell around to his friend. By the time the 1930s started, Dickie wanted more out of life than to just be a playboy. He wanted to own a restaurant in Harlem. He was, by this time, no stranger to receiving money from women, and reputedly, one of his rich clients, if you will, gave him the money that he needed to start his very own supper club. He named his spot Dickie Wells. His popularity was through the roof, so it's no surprise that his restaurant was a hit. By the early 1930s, it became one of the most popular hangouts on the Harlem night scene. And it was here, in Harlem, not Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles, where chicken and waffles first became a meal. The way that it was described as coming about sounds pretty logical. Dickie's Club catered to people who were out late at night until early in the morning, so many of his customers didn't know if they wanted to eat dinner or if they wanted to eat breakfast. So Dickie's idea? Why not give them both? A hot plate of chicken and waffles. Sometimes it was served with coffee, other times a shot of bourbon. In the 1930s, this seemed like an odd combination, but in a short while, everyone in Harlem wanted chicken and waffles in their bellies or on their menus. After Dickie Wells did it, Ethel Waters put chicken and waffles on the menu when she opened her restaurant. And another Wells in Harlem named J.T. Wells opened his restaurant in 1938 and became very well known for his chicken and waffles until his restaurant closed in 1982. Herb Hudson, who is the founder of Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles, is a Harlem native. He is responsible for bringing the dish to the West Coast and popularizing it. But let's be very clear, it is 1930s Harlem Gigolo, Dickie Wells, who gets the credit for creating the food combination. And was this Gigolo also a mama's boy? According to notorious gangster Bumpy Johnson's widow, Mamie Johnson, Dickie used some of his Gigolo wealth to buy a home for his mother, a brownstone in an elite neighborhood in Harlem, and he took up residence in the basement apartment of his mother's home and lived there until he died. Speaking of his death, it's probably no surprise to hear that a playboy who lived his life in the fast lane died relatively young. At the age of 41, Dickie Wells died of a drug overdose. Which brings me back to the singer who I mentioned at the beginning of this story. Remember Jean Parks? Well, there is a reason why Jet magazine called her a hard luck singer on the cover of this issue from March 5th, 1953. She desperately wanted to be a famous singer, and just when she was on the verge of realizing her dream, time after time, one thing or another would stop her. First, she got arrested, quote, as a dope addict, end quote, as Jet describes it. Then years later, she contracted a skin ailment that would mar her face permanently. And now, with Dickie's death, was another stumbling block. Why? Because when he died from a drug overdose, he died in her apartment. That's bad enough. But when you couple that with the fact that at the time of Dickie's death, he was under investigation in the case of a United States diplomat whose daughter became a prostitute, you can imagine that the scandal was just too much for Miss Jean Parks to bear. Reportedly, when the news of Dickie's death reached Hollywood, Ava Gardner cried about it for days, and Tallulah Bankhead fainted when she heard it. Billie Holiday was on the program to sing at his funeral, but she was too devastated to follow through with it. Reportedly, over 40,000 people attended his funeral, and a great deal of them were crying women. Dickie Wells' name would appear in Jet magazine 2 more times after he died, and both times it was because of actress and professional party girl Tallulah Bankhead. In this 1951 issue of Jet, there's just a mention that Dickie Wells' name has been brought up and will be further discussed in the Tallulah Bankhead trial. Here was the deal. Tallulah was suing her maid for stealing $15,000, but the maid basically turned all eyes on Tallulah when her defense was that Tallulah authorized her to spend that $15,000 on Tallulah's expenses, which included cocaine, whiskey, and sex. Well, with Dickie's name being brought into the fold, it was because Tallulah was known to buy 2 of those 3 things from him. And just for the record, she wasn't known to buy whiskey from Dickie. Got it? I'm sure that you do. That issue of Jet has this amazing photo of Dickie, Tallulah, and Billie Holiday. I can only imagine how wild those parties must have been. Then finally, this 1952 issue of Jet magazine, based on reporting from the Tallulah trial, states that Dickie Wells sold cocaine to Tallulah Bankhead. It's a short write-up, so I'll read it to you. The article is titled, "Dickie Wells Sold Cocaine to Tallulah." That title certainly gets right to the point. The article reads, Mrs. Eveline Cronin, former secretary maid to Tallulah Bankhead, told a New York court that Harlem playboy Dickie Wells sold cocaine to the famed actress at her Plymouth Theater dressing room in New York. On trial for hiking checks given her by Miss Bankhead, the maid testified that the late Wells was a very good friend of Miss Bankhead and brought in the cocaine, for which Miss Bankhead paid $50, more as charity than as payment for the contraband. Wells, she said, was awfully broke and near bankruptcy, and we all loved him. End quote. We all loved him, she said. I think that is evidenced by all of the crying women who attended his funeral. They must have really loved Dickie's chicken and waffles. And how sad is it to think of this man who was earning more money than most black men, or really anyone could have dreamed of making in the 1920s, to being gifted huge sums of money, enough to start a supper club, and a successful one at that. All of that to being nearly bankrupt at the end of his short life. That's it for this one. If you liked this video, please share it on all of your social media. That really helps this channel out a lot. I'll see you on the next one.